Thanks very much, Todd Buckingham from the BetMakers. Obviously, we tried to do this on Friday, so apologies for those that did try and tune in. But as promised, we've got Todd pre-recorded earlier. But Todd, I'll throw it over to you to whittle through it. But thanks very much again for making the time.
No worries, Simon. Thank you very much for having us on, and thanks everyone for listening in. I just thought I'd give a company overview of the BetMakers Technology Group for those of you who don't know what we do yet. Basically, we provide essential services to the racing industry and to wagering operators. And by essential services, we mean we package up data and information that come from racing bodies and rights holders of races from around the world. We cover all of the codes, thoroughbreds, harness and greyhounds. So anything to do with racing, we provide a service for both racing bodies and or the connection between racing bodies and the wagering operators. Those essential services are basically normalising data from wherever they come from. So there's racing that happens around the world. There's about 5,000 races per week that go on. Most bookmakers operate at around 2,500 to 3,000 races per week. Those races will come from North America, from South America, from UK, Ireland, Asian racing, and obviously the domestic stuff here in Australia and New Zealand. So as you can imagine, that data comes in many different shapes, sizes and formats. We normalise that into one solution for the operators, and we present that in a single integration for the wagering operators. It's a full event life cycle. So as soon as the fields come up, days out from the event, then obviously through that event life cycle, you'll have scratchings and runners and updates to track conditions and then even down to race jump times and following that for results and information that you would need to run your racing book. We have a very strong domestic presence with all of the operators here in Australia would take some or all of our services. And we also work really closely with the racing clubs here. We have race day control boxes that sit on basically every race course in Australia, which then deliver and accept and distribute information that comes from that racetrack to do with the race day controls on course and official prices that gets transferred between the tracks. The domestic presence we have here with the operators has obviously led us into international expansion. A lot of the operators that in Australia here are owned by big corporate companies based out of the UK. And Australia has a very, very strong presence in racing here, probably the strongest in the world in terms of the size of the market in comparison to the total market. Those other markets such as the UK and in particular the US, which we'll talk about a bit further down in the presentation, are really developing countries or jurisdictions on the racing front. And they're realising the impact that with Australia, we have a very strong presence here, but it's also very strong gross gaming revenue that it produces in comparison to sport. So those international markets where these operators are expanding their offering and going from circa 1,000 races per week, they want to build up to 2,500. They want to take a solution like what BetMakers offer and have a lot of automation in that system. And then they can then expand out without having the increase in resources. So that international expansion has worked quite well for us over the last 12 to 24 months, and it continues to grow. The company itself is well capitalised. We have in excess of $2 million in cash in the bank at present. We have basically cash flow break even, albeit growing quite rapidly. We're expecting to grow quite rapidly over the next 6 to 12 months. COVID-19, which we'll talk about again in a minute, has probably put a lid on a little bit of the growth side of it. but we still expect to be well capitalised moving forward, moving through this crisis. We have strong revenue growth, with 68% year-on-year revenue growth for H1 FY20 in comparison to the previous corresponding half. And we expect that to continue throughout FY21 based off numerous deals that we'll talk about a bit later on. The experienced team in BetMakers has been developed from 10 years of building B2B products for the wagering industry. We have a high in-depth team knowledge and a lot of the B2B products that you see in the racing industry here in Australia has been built by BetMakers team members. Just to give you an overview of how BetMakers fits into the ecosystem, we have principal racing authorities or racing bodies, rights holders, so people that hold the rights to the information when you're dealing with racing bodies. They have many different formats that they put their data and information and how they pull that off course and how they distribute that. BetMakers is the piece that sits in the middle that normalises that for across the jurisdictions and delivers that into a solution for the bookmakers. So that's our main product is normalising that data, delivering it into a single stream and then managing that on behalf of the wagering operators. We then have implemented pricing solutions such as Price Manager, Dynamic Odds Interface. Price Manager basically does what a trader would normally do in terms of managing the prices. It matches up with the data and then can automate a pricing solution based off algorithms that are created and formulas that are entered in by the bookmakers to adjust their risk profile. And then that is then matched up and automated for the operators. It's allowed many of the bookmakers to significantly reduce their resource costs and also deliver a much more streamlined product, which then allows them to expand on the amount of races that they can actually provide to their customers each week. We've seen a very high growth in international products coming in, and also the domestic product being able to expand and bet a lot earlier than previously. The last few years, you would have seen races going up on a Wednesday and the prices from all the operators actually going up on a Wednesday, as opposed to traditionally a Saturday meeting only start getting bet on early on the Saturday morning. So that's done only by having automation in the process, and we've been an instrumental part in being able to distribute that. So we've done some recent announcements over the last 6 months, which are the catalyst of our growth. I suppose the blue sky in the business, and I'll touch on a few of those. The New Jersey fixed odds exclusive 10-year distribution deal that we've done. We've partnered up with the New Jersey Horsemen Association and Monmouth Park. To give you a little bit of background on that New Jersey market, New Jersey was the first state in the US to approve sports betting, which has been an industry that's absolutely gone through the roof over the last 18 to 24 months. And a bunch of our customers from Australia and from the UK have entered the US market from a sports betting perspective. And we've seen an interest in fixed odds on horse racing. Traditionally in the US, or up until now, they've only had parimutuel betting, which is your traditional tote betting. That market then is, we see it opening up for fixed odds on horse racing the same way it did here in Australia. So 10 to 12 years ago, here in Australia, there was only parimutuel. The entry of the corporate bookmakers from the UK, such as Paddy Power and the like, came into this market and offered fixed odds horse betting. Then the TAB started offering that, and it's been significant growth in the horse racing market here in Australia, and that's been driven by the fixed odds market. So if you go back 10, 12 years ago, there was probably $10 billion in annual turnover on horse racing from pari-mutuel in Australia. That's now grown to circa 25 billion, and 100% of that growth has come from the fixed odds market. So we see the US as in a similar vein, where you've got a $10 to $12 billion turnover pari-mutuel market in the US, and as sports betting rolls out across the US, we see fixed odds horse racing as being an integral part of that. We've been able to partner up in New Jersey as the piece that sits in the middle for racing bodies and for wagering operators, again, to be able to normalise a solution so that everybody understands it's not disjointed, and everybody understands their roles and responsibilities, and where we act on behalf of the horsemen in that jurisdiction under a rev share arrangement. So it's an exciting market for us, and something that we'll be concentrating on towards the back end of 2020 and leading into next year. Another interesting growth area, we've announced a couple of on-course bookmakers go online. So the traditional bookmaker that sits on your racetrack, he's now moving into an online market. There's a lot of interest with the demise, I suppose, of the industry with the coronavirus, without having patrons on course, has then created a bit more interest in those on-course bookmakers having an online presence. There's no point being on course at the moment if there's no patrons there. So the interest in bringing their business online is something that's grown in our network. We see this as a strong growth area. The on-course bookmakers have a lot of experience. Their biggest hurdle to date was the technology to be able to do that. We've been able to develop a white label solution so that the bookmakers can be up and running quite quickly. From a technology sense, they can compete with the bigger operators like Sportsbet and BetEasy and Tabcorp, and have that as a solution, which wasn't available up until now. We announced a deal with the Waterhouse Group, and two parts of those deals. The first one is the Tom Waterhouse app. Most of you guys might know Tom Waterhouse as a brand. He's developed a tipping service with circa 80,000 customers that they have now. What they wanted to do was build in a betting engine where the customers can access their betting platforms from that tipping app. We had the technology there with our dynamic odds comparison site. So we've been able to customize for Tom's app so that his punters can go into the app. They can put in their details of their betting accounts, and their betting accounts will then be managed within that app. So they don't have to get a tip from Tom and then go out and check all of their betting apps to see what's the best price. The application, Tom Waterhouse application, will just show them what the best price is based off their accounts that they've got. If there's a price out there that's better, that's not one of their applications, then we notify the customer that there's a bookmaker there that's offering better prices. If the person signs up, the commercials behind that are that we would get paid as a acquisition for that, a new acquisition for that bookmaker. So it's an exciting one with a bunch of punters that are getting tips, and gives us access to be able to build out a good revenue stream from that quite quickly. The other part of the deal with Waterhouse Group is our managed trading services. And just circling back to the on-course bookmakers, the bookmakers to on-course bookmaker might do somewhere between 100 and 200 races per week. To offer a service like an online presence, you need to be doing circa 2,000 races per week. So our managed trading services you can outsource those other 1,800 races per week and outsource it to us, and we can manage that on your behalf through our automated technology, through pricing from the Waterhouse Group and from trading from the Waterhouse Group as well. So quite an exciting prospect that then has led into our opportunity with the US. the expansion of fixed odds betting across the US. There's racetracks and there's casinos and there's online operators that don't have experience in doing fixed odds betting on horse racing. We're able to offer our services that can manage that from an outsourced point of view. One deal that we wanted to bring to your attention is the GVC global deal, and this gives you an understanding of how our business has expanded and what we offer. Global partnership started with our offering here in Australia that we do for Ladbrokes and Neds. That then was an introduction into the GVC brands, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Those brands then wanted a single solution. GVC had done a number of acquisitions, and they wanted to. It also comes with a number of different platforms and a number of different trading teams. So we wanted to build a solution that they could have that went across all of those platforms and went across all of those trading teams. So we built that for GVC. That's gone live now into the UK market. They're a really good customer of ours, both in Australia and in the UK market. And our expectation is that they'll be a really decent customer as horse racing expands in the US market as well. GVC have signed a deal with MGM Bet, a joint venture called Raw Digital. That is a developing brand, and it's an exciting brand for the US market, which we're happy to be a part of. We did a COVID-19 update, like most businesses. At this stage, we haven't been affected greatly. Most of our customers, all of our customers, continue to use our services. We haven't lost any customers yet, and we haven't lost any products as yet. There's ongoing management of that and how that falls out. We believe that the effect on us will be more around delay of products going into the market. In particular, if the Australian racing market was to shut down for a period of time, then that would delay a number of these products that I'm talking about going to market. So I'll just now cover off on what's next for BetMakers, and also what to look out for as an investor, the catalyst of things that could be real needle movers for us, the customer acquisition and retention services that we're building for the Tom Waterhouse app. Obviously, any notification of when that goes live, we believe it's going to be a decent revenue driver for us. So once that Tom Waterhouse app is in the market, then we'll be building other services, similar services on the back of that. So that's a catalyst to look out for. Our managed trading services, which is another part of the Waterhouse deal, both announcements of on-course bookmakers coming on board, or racetracks and casinos. We're in the market talking to these guys, trying to get customers for those services. So that will be a big catalyst for us, being able to announce more managed trading services, businesses that come on and utilise the BetMakers MTS product. Fixed odds distribution across the US, obviously on the back of the New Jersey announcement. New Jersey has been a state that's been hit quite significantly by the coronavirus, along with New York. That is from a launch point of view, we're due to launch early May. That's already been pushed back to late May. Again, it's up in the air at the moment with what's happening with coronavirus. So announcements around the launch of the New Jersey market would be a catalyst for us to again concentrate on. Our customer expansion and of products and services. So during the coronavirus, it's become apparent that the content is extremely important, and being able to have more content from different locations and being nimble and being able to act has been a blessing for BetMakers. The fact that we've been able to bring in content, so as our customers are losing content from certain jurisdictions, there's been a large shutdown racing around the world, but there is still racing going on in certain jurisdictions. So as one place shuts down and another place opens back up, we've been nimble enough to be able to provide those for our customers. We'll continue to do that through the COVID-19 period, and until things get back to normal. Once things get back to normal, then it'll put us in a really good position from a business point of view, that we've been able to deliver a whole range of content from different sources for our customers. Expanding those products and services. Obviously, once you're integrated and delivering a range of services for the operator, then it makes it easier for us then to be able to expand on those products. So as an investor, look out for any products and services that we announce and we expand on due to our large network now of bookmakers globally. We'll just quickly cover off on the global bookmaker market, which will give you a bit of an idea on how we do expand and how we have expanded. Initially the Australian model, where we looked after the Australian operators, and you can see there from Australia, Sportsbet, BetEasy, Ladbrokes and Neds, PointsBet, Bet365, Unibet, and some other notable bookmakers there. Essentially, all of those bookmakers are our customers, which has then led us into the European market, and will be the driving force into the US market. So the customers that are coming out of Australia and Europe are the ones that are driving into that US market. So that covers off on the business and where we're at, and hopefully gives you a good understanding of where BetMakers are and how we've been, how we're going to expand into the other markets as suggested. And please feel free to be in touch if you have any other questions.
Great, thanks, Todd. Thanks again for making the time. If anyone has any questions for BetMakers, you'll obviously have our email that you received this from. So just ping us and come back, and we'll put you in touch with Todd. But Todd, thanks very much again for making the time.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.